Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. Coming up, a Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. A Colorado family receives the largest police settlement in state history after the death of their son, Christian Glass. But the question remains, does it have to do with race? We'll speak with one of the attorneys on the case about this historic settlement. We'll also examine the controversial remarks by a black pro-Trump pastor who used the Bible to justify potential violence to return Trump to the White House next year. Folks, the continuing battle over Black Lives Matter continues as the Black Lives Matter grassroots movement says they are not receiving funds from the Black Lives Matter Foundation. We will have the leader of the Black Lives Matter grassroots group right here on the show to explain. In Georgia, a school district may have violated student civil rights by banning books based on race. And also, one parent in Florida complained about the poem read at the inauguration of President Joe Biden. The book was being removed from the school because one parent complained. Also, we'll hear from a variety of folks about the life and legacy of Jim Brown, including Hall of Famers Marcus Allen, Green Bay Packers great Willie Buchanan, as well as Sterling Sharp. Folks, finally, in our Marketplace segment, Reecie Colbert has a brand new game called Am I Tripping? She'll be here to explain to us exactly how the game works. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
A Colorado family is getting what is believed to be the largest settlement of $19 million in state history for the wrongful death of their son. Christian Glass was shot and killed by former Clear Creek County Sheriff's Deputy Andrew Nguyen in Silver Plume last year while experiencing a mental health crisis. Glass was paranoid, was hallucinating and delusional. It's called 911 to report being followed as the officer tried to put Glass out of the car for an hour despite his condition before fatally shooting him. Nguyen is facing second-degree murder charges, official misconduct, and reckless endangerment charges. His supervisor, Sergeant Kyle Gould, is charged with criminally negligent homicide and reckless endangerment for not intervening. The settlement, which tops the $15 million settlement reached in 2021 for the death of Elijah McClain, is the largest for a police killing in Colorado and ranks among the top in the U.S. Edward Hopkins, one of the attorneys involved in this case, joins us now from Denver. So, okay, so they're paying the settlement, but obviously, I'm sure the family still wants these officers brought to justice.
No doubt about it, and they are likely going to be brought to justice. The Clear Creek District Attorney has brought charges after a grand jury indicted both the officer that fired the shots as well as the officer that ordered everybody to get into the car. So those officers are facing charges, and the prosecution is ongoing.
So, they're paying the settlement, but obviously the city did not actually admit to any wrongdoing, correct?
No, they carefully worded their statement about this. They did not admit to any wrongdoing, like you say, but they also did acknowledge that there were some procedural shortcomings, but we stopped short of saying we did something wrong.
So what we're seeing, though, is that what often happens in these cases where a lot of these officers, they get returned to the force other places. First of all, were these two, are they still on the force? Were they fired?
They were fired. They were fired after the grand jury indicted.
And so when is this headed to trial?
That I do not know. We do hope it will be heading to trial soon.
Okay, then. Well, we certainly appreciate you joining us. Hopefully, this family will get some justice. All too often, we see these cases where it doesn't happen, but thankfully, a grand jury is certainly seen to indict these officers for their actions.
Well, they are going to get some justice. The family did get justice. The family certainly cleared their son's name. Initially, the reports were that he may have been responsible for his own death. And they were very adamant about making sure that the public knew that he did nothing wrong, that he was extremely stressed out, that he was panicking, and that this could have been handled very differently. Had the officers who were there intervened and stopped this, he would still be alive today. But there's another thing I want your audience, because I'm a member of the audience, to know. The work you are doing, the work that everyone who is doing, who is a social activist, everybody's working the political systems, that work is working. The reason why we were able to do this for the Glass family had a lot to do with what happened with George Floyd and with Elijah. So, but for Elijah and the changes that it made to the state, we probably would not have been able to get the Glass family this justice as quickly as we were.
All right, then. All right. Edward, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Have a good evening.
Folks, while that is happening, this was happening in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis actually has set money aside. In the state of Florida, they're actually hiring officers who have been beating folks and involved in all kind of heinous acts in other parts of the country. It goes to show you what is happening, how deranged and nuts he is. This is the type of thing that one of the reasons why the NAACP has a travel advisory targeting Florida because of what's happening there. My panel, Dr. Larry J. Walker, assistant professor, University of Central Florida. Torun Walker, founder of Context Media. He's from out of Atlanta. Pastor Shannon Wright, CEO, Urban Engagement Initiative out of Baltimore. Larry, you're there in Florida. Again, it has to be particularly galling to folks there to see DeSantis gleefully, happily hiring cops who have committed wrongdoing in other places.
You know, Roland, it's an interesting thing being a black man in America. You know, I've lived in a few different cities, Philadelphia, Baltimore, et cetera. And it feels like no matter where you go, you can't escape some of the kind of madness that happens when it comes to some politicians in this weird relationship with law enforcement. Now, obviously, what you described is troubling for me, particularly living in a state, being a black male. We know that black folks are 2-3 times more likely to be killed by law enforcement. On top of that, as of July 1st, there will be a permitless bill that the governor signed will go into effect. So we have, we're hiring these individuals who have committed, in some cases, atrocious acts and being hired in the state of Florida. And on top of that, it'll be the Wild Wild West starting July 1st. But once again, this is a continuation of these right-wing policies we've seen from this state and this governor and the legislators here on the Republican side. But once again, this is, I've said before on your show, this is a form of anti-blackness, but it places the lives of folks like me on the line. And it's a clear message to people who look like me that I'm not welcome.
Shannon, it says, this is the headline, go to my iPad. DeSantis' $13.5 million police program lures officers with violent records to Florida. Now, here's a quote in here from the Republican Attorney General. This will go a long way to ensuring we can have the best and the brightest filling our law enforcement ranks. That is Ashley Moody, who is the Florida Attorney General, about DeSantis' one-time bonuses of $5,000 for new recruits. But here's what it says here. However, among the almost 600 officers who moved to Florida and received the bonus or were recruited to the state are a sizable number who either arrived with a range of complaints against them or have since accrued criminal charges, the online media outlet Daily Dot has discovered. That's, to me, that's not the kind of folks you actually want on your police force in your state when you basically, they've screwed up other places. But hey, what the hell? Florida welcomes them with open arms.
So to me, that sends the message that says we applaud whatever it is you did, wherever you came from, to get yourself in trouble.
And in fact, Shannon, this is the actually Daily Dot. This is their headline: murder, kidnapping, brutality charges. These are the cops Ron DeSantis paid to come to Florida.
Like I said, I mean, to put it nicely as I possibly can, it sends absolutely the wrong message. Florida is a state that has a large business in tourism. So when people are spending their dollars in tourism, they want to feel safe. So to say that you're hiring people that have let's just put it mildly, questionable backgrounds in law enforcement to come and be the face, if you will, of your law enforcement efforts, it's counterintuitive. And it absolutely says that the folks that, now follow me on this, the folks that were the victims of their crimes elsewhere are going to be their targets in their new home state. So if that's the message you want to send, you're doing it effectively. But if not, somebody needs to redo some strategy there.
Well, Torun, what it clearly says is that Republicans, or in this case, Ron DeSantis, who's going to be announcing his run for president tomorrow on Twitter with Elon Musk, they don't give a damn if these folks have been thug cops. Their whole deal is they can do whatever they want.
Well, you know, there's two things that are happening here. Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm originally a Florida native. I'm from Jacksonville. And growing up, seeing the way Florida law enforcement moves, I don't see why they have to import more people to do the things they were already doing. The second thing is this. It's an election year. It's about to be an election year. And DeSantis is going to be going head-to-head with Trump for the Republican nomination, the way it looks. And what this is clear messaging to his base that if you have white supremacist beliefs, if you have, you know, practiced white supremacists as a law enforcement officer before, you can come to Florida and you can have free reign. It's almost like a repeat of what happened after Reconstruction, where when Hayes pulled the federal troops out of the South and law enforcement became swamped by all these old Confederate soldiers, and all these old Confederate generals became mayors and governors and city council people. And it's really what it is trying to create Florida as a haven for these people who have these murderous beliefs, and they could operate with free reign. And it's going to be very dangerous for people in Florida who are black.
Absolutely. And again, it goes to show you that these folks do not care about citizens. They will do whatever they can to appease police officers, even when they are thug cops. So tight 1 second, going to a break. When we come back, more on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button. Also, download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also, of course, support this show by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Download a copy on Audible. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hi, I'm Gavin Houston.
Hi, I'm Carl Payne. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, Florida officials, Republicans are, boy, they really pissed off with the NAACP's travel advisory. They have been angry, mocking it. Not only that, other Republicans have joined in. You've had idiots like Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, who said Dr. King would never do such a thing. Clearly, that idiot has never actually read or heard Dr. King, especially the April 3rd, 1968 speech at Mason Temple, where he talked about redistributing the pain, where he talked about withholding our dollars. It's interesting, Shannon, to look at this reaction from Republicans in Florida, because it's not like first of all, the NAACP did not call for a boycott of Florida. They issued a travel advisory. Launching a statewide boycott is a whole other different thing, but you also have a lot of pissed off Latinos in that state as well, and you got lots of truckers who are saying that they're going to be taking any goods to Florida. So Ron DeSantis, in all of his culture wars in his effort to try to out-Trump Trump to get the GOP nomination, it could lead to some serious issues in the Sunshine State.
So we keep talking about Ron DeSantis in terms of politics and Republican and ultra-conservative far right and all that. But we need to be talking about Ron DeSantis in terms of a poster child for the need for appropriate mental health care in this country. From a political perspective, for you to say you're going to announce that you're running for president and you're going to do things to alienate the black folk, the brown folk, the Jewish folk, the LGBTQ folk, and a whole other list of folks, and think that you could win, forget the nomination. It may not be that hard to beat Trump in the primary. Well, I'll leave that there. But going forward in the general, if you have set yourself up as the most anti-everything, there's no way you're winning in the general. So from a political perspective, this ain't politics. This is stupidity. Because the goal of politics is to set yourself up in policy and practice and procedure to actually be able to win a race, not just a primary, but a general. And this ain't that.
I mean, I don't know, Torun. I mean, bottom line is work for Trump. Other Republicans have run this way. We're in their culture battles. They're attacking everybody. If you're transgender, if you're Black Lives Matter, if you, I mean, whatever, they don't care. And the bottom line is the Republican Party, they are appealing to white conservative voters, especially those who are not college educated.
You know, with all due respect to my sister, we can't really deny the fact that that strategy just might work. I mean, a lot of people said that Trump was not going to win in 2016, but there are a lot of silent
supremacy. I always said it, and I'll say it.
There are a lot of silent white supremacists who will go into the booth and pull the lever for Trump or DeSantis, and they'll never tell you that. We have to be very careful about the fact that there are people who really believe in the things this man says. And even if he doesn't win, what they can do, and it's what I tell people all the time, when you go to local elections, when you go to state elections, even if he doesn't win the nomination, if he gets enough of a groundswell to start moving people into like state houses, into the legislatures, into the judicial positions and everything, you can pretty much legislate from the states without even having to go to the White House, and that's dangerous as well. There are people out there that support this, and we got to be aware of that.
You know, Larry, somebody sent me this TikTok video of this guy. He was on social media, and he had a whole lot to say about Latinos and whites who have voted for Ron DeSantis. Watch this.
It always happens when you buy into white supremacy. I always said it, and I'll say it again. The fucking state of Florida. State of Florida is becoming a fucking sundown town. You're not a straight white Christian male, and he's going for them too. Everybody's civil liberties and constitutional rights are being affected. Let me tell you something. You guys always say it's gerrymandering and all that shit why I got elected. No, 68% of Cubans voted for DeSantis. 58% of Puerto Ricans, 53% of all Latinos voted for DeSantis. God knows how many white ignorant motherfuckers you buy into white supremacy. You don't care. It's not your problem. You're a fucking idiot. It is your fucking problem. White supremacy affects everybody, not just black people, not just brown people, not just indigenous people, everybody. Now you elected a fucking fascist in the state of Florida. Now you got to deal with your civil liberties being violated. Now you got to deal with businesses, industries being shut down because they can't find any fucking labor. And now, magically, Latinos give a fuck. Latinos didn't give a fuck when he was anti-black with his anti-woke policy. You didn't give a fuck. Now that it's anti-immigration, now you give a fuck. Well, guess what? You got what you fucking voted for. You fucking idiots. Not all Cubans, Dixon. Not all Puerto Ricans, Dixon. Not all white people, Dixon. I know, not all, but too fucking many. The majority of your people voted for fascism. The majority of your people voted for white supremacy. That's the fucking problem. You don't care. You haven't done anything to address it. Address the fucking problem. Hold your people accountable. I'm half Cuban. I know. It's in my own fucking family. Some of them, I know what it's like in the fucking Cuban community. I've seen it with my own fucking eyes. The other half is white. God knows the white supremacy and ignorance racially that operates in my white community. Hold your people accountable so that you don't have this kind of fucking bullshit. I'm not saying Democrats aren't racist, but fuck, man, they're not going to these extremes to normalize white supremacy and to normalize fascism, pass legislation that is directly anti-immigrant, anti-gay, anti-black, and coming for every other liberty that you have. My God, people are fucking ignorant. I've always told you people, white supremacy hurts everybody. No one is free until we all are free. And there is no freedom in America until white supremacy is dismantled. What happens when you buy into white supremacy? I always said it.
Well, he was not particularly happy, but he sort of made it plain, Larry.
It reminds me of kind of things that he ran down is chickens come home to roost of everybody else. When you participate in anti-blackness and you're from a minoritized background, it comes full circle. The example he kind of highlighted was this, this kind of e-verify. If you were to prove that you're a U.S. citizen, you're documented, you can work in the state of Florida. If you have anyone in your car who's undocumented, you get caught. It is a felony now in the state. So once again, what comes around goes around. And his points he made about other groups supporting DeSantis and voting me in, and then all the policies we've seen is accurate. And once again, Roland, we talked about all these issues relating to anti-blackness, particularly not just in brown. We're talking about black communities, but the brown communities in terms of they're being okay with a lot of these policies. And now they're finding out, well, you know what? You're non-white, so welcome to the party. But the bottom line is we have to continue in the state of Florida and throughout the United States. We have to fight against these policies. I'm certainly on the front lines of dealing with this as a black male professor in the state. But these challenges are going to continue unless, once again, we come together and we fortify the front and we fight these right-wing policies. Otherwise, we're going to continue to lose the state and other states in the nation.
But here's the deal, Shannon. I mean, the reality is what DeSantis is doing, he is doing it with the complete approval of the Republican legislature, where they control the legislature. They have a majority, a supermajority, veto proof. They control it. We see the same thing in North Carolina and other states as well. The Republican Party is saying we're perfectly fine with what we're seeing.
Well, clearly not every member of the Republican Party. I ain't all right with it at all. So, and again, when we lump these issues into, we try to be politically correct a little bit. When we lump these issues into a political party, we overlook the fact that racism and stupidity does not have a lock on either party. It's in all the parties. So when you look at the things that DeSantis is doing, it's about more than just this one policy. And I have to say, I agree with this. The time to have stopped him from doing the things that he's doing was when it was just, quote, black folk as the target. But now that worked, now we're going to expand it to include other groups. But again, I say, this is not a logical sound, even from a political perspective, which is where everyone seems to want to look at it. It is not a logical model. It's not a logical plan.
But the party, but the entire party rallied around Donald Trump, and there wasn't nothing logical about that, and he won. And the reality is, the candidates who are running, their whole deal is we got to be as nutcase as he was, because hey, the GOP voters clearly they approve of it.
Okay, I would disagree with you on that. Fool me once, 2016. Okay, didn't fool me twice. And I doubt would fool me a third time. But guess what?
Look, we right now we're watching Republicans in Texas literally try to get rid of the elections administrator in one county in the entire state because they're pissed off that it's blue, Harris County. We are watching them. We're watching the bills being passed. We're watching Republicans in Mississippi create a separate police force, expanded police force, and a separate court system in the area of Jackson where most of the white people live, because they claim it's about increasing crime in Jackson, but they don't want to give Jackson more funding. They want to take over a lot of the police function and the court system. We're seeing the exact same thing in North Carolina. In terms of where Republicans, in terms of how they're moving. You're looking in Iowa, where you got the attorney general there who says, "Hey, if you're a woman who gets raped or somebody's committed incest, we're not going to provide you any resources for abortion. You just got to suck it up." The Republican Party is saying across the country, we're fine with this.
Again, you're generalizing.
No, I'm not.
Kind of like
I just offered you literally 5 states.
Because you don't want, not one black person on this panel, none of you would want everybody to say, well, all black people do this or all black people do that. Because we are not all one person.
Shannon, first of all, hold on, Shannon, factually, I didn't say all, but the facts are fundamentally clear. I literally named 5 states. I could name 10 more. We have in Montana, where Republicans in Montana literally voted to silence a elected official who is transgender because she dared criticize one of their bills. They silenced a non-binary sister in Oklahoma. That's the Republican Party as well. We saw what the Republican Party did in Tennessee. I've now named 8 states. You want me to name more? I am literally naming you things that Republicans are doing. Texas, Florida,
almost
Mississippi, Tennessee, Iowa, North Carolina. I mean, we can keep going.
Almost everything that you've named are the same type of issues we're having here in Maryland. And Republicans in Maryland ain't been in control of nothing in a long dang time. Okay. So as I said before, these issues are everywhere and they are not just one party. When you do a Google search, just do a Google search, forget from a political perspective, of the most gerrymandered states in the country, Maryland's in the top 5. Republicans don't control nothing in Maryland and haven't in a long time. When you look at folks trying to talk about removing folks from elections because what color the county may be, that happens in Maryland as well. Ain't no Republicans in charge. My point is this. Yes, you have cited examples of Republicans doing it, but it is not just Republicans. And if we want to fight these issues, we need to fight them wherever they are and from whomever they come from.
Hey, Roland, can I tell?
Yeah, Larry, go ahead.
So I want to highlight a couple of things. The 2-term Governor Hogan former Governor Hogan was a Republican for 2 terms. So I might want to add that caveat in the state of Maryland. And also, I want to highlight something.
Does that mean Maryland's still not listed as one of the top 5 gerrymandered states?
Let me highlight a point. I haven't seen those stats. But let me ask you another point as a researcher. You cannot use Google as a data point. So let me highlight that. It's not effective and it's not a correct data point. The other thing I want to highlight is Roland, as he said, he went through a series of states that are passed or passing anti-LGBTQ, anti-Black policies, and have not even blinked. So what we're talking about is once folks are trying to bring us back to Jim Crow based on some of these policies, to undermine democracy, to limit what books, the curriculum in schools and post-secondary institutions, to limit a woman's opportunity to decide what they want to do with their body, among the other harmful policies. They're not only anti-Black, anti-LGBTQ, but in the state of Florida, also anti-business.
Ron, comment before I go to break.
Bottom line is, look, the Republican Party, whether we like it or not, they play dirty and they do not care about playing dirty. And I have said this to people who work on campaigns more than once. We people who are on the Democratic side gotta learn that you're in a war. Whether you want to be in a fight or not, if somebody keeps slapping you in the face, you're in a fight. So you better learn to fight, and you better learn how to go to the people with the fight you want to take it to, and start pushing back that way. You can't intellectualize your way out of the situation that's coming.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. Going to a break. We come back. We're going to talk to the leader of the Black Lives Matter grassroots movement, where they are making it clear that they are not aligned with the Black Lives Matter Foundation. We'll explain when we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
That was a pivotal time. I remember Kevin Hart telling me that. He's like, man, what you doing, man? You got to stay on stage. And I was like, yeah, well, I ain't got, I'm young, thinking, like, I'm good. And he was absolutely right.
What show was the other time?
This was one-on-one.
Got it.
During that time.
So you're doing one-on-one, going great.
Yeah.
You making money. You like.
I'm like, I don't need to leave. I don't need to leave from Wednesday, Thursday to Sunday. I didn't want to do that. It was just like I'm gonna stay here. Or I didn't want to finish work Friday, fly out, go do a gig Saturday, Sunday. I was like, I don't have to do that. And I lost a little bit of that hunger that I had in New York. I would hit all the clubs, run around. Sometimes me and Chappelle or me and this one or that one, we'd go to the Comedy Cellar at 1 in the morning. And that was our life. We loved it. You do 2 shows in Manhattan, go to Brooklyn, leave Brooklyn, go to Queens, go to Jersey. And I got complacent. I was like, I got this money, I'm good. I don't need to go chase that, because that money wasn't at the same level that I was making, but what I was missing was that training.
Yes.
Was that.
And it wasn't the money.
It was the money. It was that's what I needed.
Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Hi, I'm Eric Nolan.
I'm Shantae Moore.
Hi, my name is Latoya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, recent news reports say there's been a massive drop in donations to the Black Lives Matter Movement Global Network Foundation. Now, Black Lives Matter Grassroots, they also making it clear that they are not part of that particular effort. And so they also are engaged in a legal battle over the future direction of Black Lives Matter. Joining me now from LA is Melina Abdullah. She is the director of the Black Lives Matter Grassroots Movement. Melina, glad to have you here. So, all right, so walk us through, because this has sort of been a constant there's been constant friction here, and frankly, the public has been confused. I remember when I had Patrice Cullors on the show, and when she was explaining it, I still was like, I don't know what the hell is even going on here. So, the Black Lives Matter Global Foundation at one point provided grants or resources, things along those lines. So, as of today, so if somebody wants to donate to Black Lives Matter Grassroots Foundation, they can do so direct. And so have you severed completely any official ties with the foundation?
Yes. So there are no ties between Black Lives Matter Grassroots and the Global Network Foundation. The website that most people know is run by the Global Network Foundation. The Global Network Foundation, it has a board of 3 people, none of whom are involved in movement work.
Wait, they still have just 3 people? Because I know when I talked a year ago, they were supposed to actually have a full board. It's still 3 people?
It's still 3 people. Someone who goes by the name of Shalomia Bowers, a woman named Cecily Gay, who likes to talk about Black opulence, and a woman who is an Instagram model named Dejanay Parker. Those are the 3 people who run the Global Network Foundation. None of them are the frontline workers that people are familiar with, or the boots on the ground that people know to be Black Lives Matter.
Okay, so all right, so in terms of the work that y'all do, are people, do they know even where to go? So if they want to support the grassroots movement, where do they go? If you go to blacklivesmatter.com, you're going to the other group.
Right. So we are BLM Grassroots. We're on all social media platforms as BLM Grassroots. We also have a website, BLM Grassroots. But mostly we're continuing to do the work. So last week we were in Tampa with the family of Andrew Joseph III. Actually, it was this week, Sunday. Saturday we were in Atlanta to work on Stop Cop City, and also as part of the Malcolm X Festival there. We have chapters, 26 chapters around the country, with 8 more coming on in the midst of our onboarding process. But that's the work that we do as BLM Grassroots. It's the boots on the ground for Black Lives Matter. Again, working today, I'm just coming from a court date where the murderers of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was killed by Torrance police, they're facing trial. So we were in pretrial for them. We're doing work with Ronald Green and many others. So it's the work that people know of when they say Black Lives Matter. Unfortunately, the people with the Global Network Foundation do not do that work. And I suspect that that's why donations have fallen off so dramatically, is because people are starting to understand that the Global Network Foundation is not the movement. Black Lives Matter Grassroots is the movement.
So the 26 chapters fall under the grassroots movement and not the foundation.
That's right.
In terms of what is this court battle? So explain to folks who don't know about what's going on there.
Sure. So about a year ago, the person who is really responsible for the theft of Black Lives Matter resources, again, he goes by the name of Shalomia Bowers, notified us that he.
Why are you using quotes? Why are you doing that? That's not the person's name?
His name that many people know him by is Chrisman Bowers, and then he now goes by the name of Shalomia. So
okay.
That's why there's the quotes. But he also runs an organization or a private company called Bowers Consulting, or Bowers with an asterisk. And he let me know that he intended to keep all of Black Lives Matter resources indefinitely. And so we initially attempted to negotiate with him to give us the resources that were built off of struggle, give them back to us. We tried that for about 6 months. That didn't work. And so finally in September of last year, we filed suit for the return of the resources. And when we asked for the return of the dollars, he then immediately stole the social media platforms, email lists, websites, all of that. So we have none of those things. Those are all under the control of these 3 consultants, rather than being part of the movement, rather than the movement having access to these really important things, really important tools. And so we want to be clear that we're in the midst of this lawsuit. We're waiting on a final ruling from a judge, because they're trying to block us. The Global Network Foundation is trying to block us from even having a day in court. They filed something called an anti-SLAPP motion, basically saying that if we say that they're engaging fraudulently, that we are infringing on their First Amendment rights. The judge gave a ruling, initially a tentative ruling in our favor, but that final ruling, almost 2 months later now, still hasn't been issued. So we're really kind of at the mercy of the courts at this moment.
Okay, so again, I mean, obviously for the general public, it's greatly confusing.
Right. It's confusing, and we're doing as much as we can to shed light on what's going on. We encourage, again, people to follow BLM Grassroots. We're grateful that you've attempted to explain as much as possible, or allow us to explain as much as possible. But essentially, the people who birthed, built, and fuel the movement are continuing to do movement work, but the resources have been stolen by these consultants, and we're trying to get them back.
Hold on 1 second, going to a break. We come back. My panel has some questions as well. Folks, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, you can join our Bring the Funk fan club. Send check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Your YouTube, hit that like button, folks. It impacts the algorithm, and so we should easily be over 1,000 likes. Also, you should watch us on Amazon News. If you go to Amazon Fire, you can catch us on Amazon News as well. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. We'll be right back.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're talking about leveling up, or to put it another way, living your very best life. How to take a bold step forward that'll rock your world.
Leveling up is different for everybody. You know, I think we fall into this trap, which often gets us stuck because we're looking at someone else's level up journey, what leveling up means to them. For some, it might be a business venture. For some, it might be a relationship situation, but it's different for everybody.
It's all a part of A Balanced Life. That's next on Black Star Network.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Lunel.
So what's up? This is your boy Earthquake.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're talking to Melina Abdul. She's leader of the Black Lives Matter Grassroots. My panel is here. Tarun, your question for Melina.
Hello, Melina. I've been waiting to have this conversation for a while. We're 9 years deep into this now. Ever since Ferguson started, there were brothers like Darren Seals and people who were on the ground who would call out some of these things and he got silenced. There were people who were close to the people who were connected to the ground who talked about these issues and they either got silenced or they either got marginalized or pushed completely out the way. Nobody said anything. And all of a sudden, after people in other cities have said had these conversations as well, again, nobody said anything. Nobody had anything to say until all of a sudden the story came out about $90 million and nobody said anything about, and people saw houses and mansions getting built. So my question is, what's happening now to make people so upset about the leadership that people weren't listening to 9 years ago, and why is what's happening today?
Sure. So we're actually stepping into 10 years. Black Lives Matter was birthed July 13th, 2013, which is the day that George Zimmerman was acquitted in the murder of Trayvon Martin. So we've been doing this work. People like me who've been on the ground since day one, who were people who were in Ferguson, who were people who were in, Baltimore and Los Angeles and all of the places that you saw uprising, right? Who were people who were just regular folks. I'm just a mama. I'm a mama of 3 kids. I never took a check, right? We've been saying things, but also I think more importantly, we viewed Black Lives Matter as a movement. So I've been less vocal about what's been happening inside of Black Lives Matter that I frankly have nothing to do with. I don't know about I do now, but at the time, I didn't know anything about dollars coming in or about, who's getting paid what. My concern and what I felt to be my sacred duty was to do work that makes the world safer for my children. And so when you're talking about people saying things, I think people were saying things, but more importantly, I think that the people, the boots on the ground, were most concerned with doing something, most concerned about doing something. We know, just understanding the historical record, that it's from the inside that movements most often destroy themselves or are destroyed. And so it was important to me and many, many others that we continue to do the work and not allow fights from the inside to destroy a movement.
But I hear what you're saying, but my point is this. I understand that there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be situations where people have differences of opinion on how a movement works. I'm saying that the conversations that you're having now, people inside of the movement who broke away from the movement have had these conversations for like the past 5 to 6 years. And there was no real movement from the inside to have these conversations. It was like either marginalize these people, shut them up, keep it moving, and nobody said anything. So my question again is, how come it takes something like outside people coming in, like the New York Times and all these quote unquote non-Black information portals, to be able to have the conversation instead of going to the people who believe in Black Lives Matter and saying, this is what's going on, this is what we're dealing with, this is what we're about, instead of waiting for it to happen from the outside. You hear what I'm saying? Because I know people are frustrated about that.
I hear what you're saying, but I think that maybe I'm not sharing it as precisely as I'd like to. I may not have the correct words. My position as someone who is just boots on the ground, now I'm director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, and I am boots on the ground, right? My concern is about the struggle rather than exposing. I don't want to spend a lot of time focusing on what infrastructures look like when our people are literally being gunned down in the streets. And so the focus hasn't been where are the criticisms coming from. It doesn't mean that we've ignored criticisms. There have been all kinds of tables created and conversations created and weekly calls created to address what you're talking about. But my primary work, and for many of us, I'm thinking about Mama Paula and the Josephs and people like Marquel Bridges, our primary work is really doing the work rather than simply addressing criticisms of the way the work is moving.
What I'm trying to get you to understand is this. People from the outside, and let me preface it by saying this. My background is in journalism. I was writing for Huffington Post when all this stuff was going on. I was in Ferguson. I was in some of these cities. I saw this stuff up close. When you have people who are risking their lives and risking their freedom to go ahead and protest for Black people and Black lives, and then all of a sudden when something happens to them, or they end up getting years in prison like someone like Josh Williams in Ferguson, or you see people who are actually getting injured when people are getting shot in the eye with beanbag bullets and things like this, and they look for somebody to bring aid to them, or they're looking for somebody to deal with legal aid to get them out of prison, or legal aid or hospital to take care of their bills, and they're risking everything. And they see people pulling in $90 million off the death of a Black man who died in the street. Two of them, actually, Mike Brown and George Floyd. And they see millions, hundreds of $90 million at least that we know of coming into an organization. And then we don't hear anything when they want accountability, and these people are still struggling. And then the next thing you know, we see people dancing in the street, and we see them popping champagne on a mansion in front of on the desk at a mansion. You have to understand that's a disconnect between people who are living hand to mouth but still believe in Black lives, and the people who are supposed to be the leadership for these organizations. And then when you try to get answers, nobody says anything. That's the point I'm trying to make. There's a serious disconnect.
So first, let me say this here. Let me say this here. And that is this here. Out of all of the Black organizations that got money in the wake of George Floyd's death, there's only one that publicly announced how much they got. There's Black Lives Matter. Okay, so Taron, you referenced the $90 million. How much did NAACP get? I can guarantee you it's more than 90 million. About 140 million. How much did the Urban League get? More than 90 million. How much did all the other black organizations get? See, and again, I absolutely believe in accountability. But I think what many people should be doing is saying, hold up, what about the whole ecosystem? It's a whole bunch of folk got money. What are they doing with the resources? That's absolutely one. Melina, the issue that Black Lives Matter has had, it was that you had, again, there was so many different entities. Again, when I had Patrice on here before she stepped down, it was Black Lives Matter PAC, it was the foundation, it was the grassroots. It was frankly convoluted as hell. I remember when she explained to me, I still couldn't follow what was going on. And so you had these multiple entities that were there, and really, and what I was told was that the Global Network Foundation was about repairing the infrastructure. An audit was done that was released. There was supposed to be more board members. Those folks haven't gotten back to me. I've reached out to the three people you talked to. We were on a press call with them last year, have not heard from them. So I don't know where the Global Network Foundation is, what they're doing, what they're funding, what's going on. So part of this deal is that when we say Black Lives Matter, which is also part of y'all lawsuit, there is a distinction because Black Lives Matter grassroots is separate from Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, but the $90 million that to run reference, that, if I'm correct, that went to the foundation, right?
That's right.
And so they determined, and they released a report saying that they gave out millions of dollars in grants, things along those lines. I think they said something like 58 or 60 million was still left. There was a plan of action for that. I still haven't heard from them on what the plan of action is. So what you're laying out is a plan of action for Black Lives Matter grassroots, which is different from the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation.
That's absolutely right. So again, grassroots is the boots on the ground. We don't have access to the $90 million or $100 million or any dollars that came in after 2020, because we know that donations continued. Even if they've dropped some, they've continued. We don't have access to those dollars. Our primary focus is on doing the work. And of course, the work would be helped greatly if we had the resources to do it. But those resources are locked away with the Global Network Foundation rather than running through the organizations and the chapters that are actually the boots on the ground.
Shannon?
I'm listening to this and I'm trying to follow it. You know, from a PR standpoint, I get the argument. Folks want to say, oh, well, see, we give these folks money, these folks trying to help their people, and this is what they do. But Roland, of course, made a really good point of saying several other organizations got a whole bunch of money, and the difference between you and them is they didn't say how much they got or specifically what they intended to do with it. And although I like and believe in transparency and accountability, I think you got a raw deal here. And we need, unfortunately, in this day and age, organizations that really still fight for people and families that have been wronged. And I understand you don't want to divert your attention and energy from fighting those fights to publicizing or showing the laundry and all those internal struggles. But sometimes folks just want to hear you say, you know what? This is what we intended to do. This is what we're doing. This is what happened. And this is where we're going. And we'd love to have you join us on that journey because the work still needs to get done and keep it moving.
Well, I appreciate that. And if we could just clip the last part. Absolutely. We intend to do the work on behalf of our people, and we are doing the work on behalf of our people. And as you're saying, as it stands, we have a raw deal, but we're not going to just sit back and let the resources be stolen. We have filed a lawsuit. We are in court. We're saying that those resources, including the dollars and the platforms and the good name that's Black Lives Matter, needs to be returned to the people. And so we're going to do that even as we fight on the ground. And as you've offered, the more folks we have on the ground, the more work that we can do, the more effective that we can be.
Larry?
Yeah, first of all, let me start by saying that the work BLM does is critical. We're still in this fight for fairness and civil rights. So I have two questions. The first question is, and I guess part of it's being on the show and fortunately have Roland having you on, how are you differentiating between the grassroots movement and the foundation publicly? Because you highlighted you have a website and a few other things, and Roland highlighted, and I agree, it's a lot of moving pieces. It's very confusing. So that's the first question.
Well, actually, hold on. So actually, I'm going to answer the first one because I think this is also part of the problem as is here. So, and trust me, it is absolutely confusing. Black Lives Matter took off so fast that when the three founders, when they tried to trademark Black Lives Matter, they couldn't because it was already in the public space. So there have been a number of groups out there that say they are a Black Lives Matter chapter in cities that are actually not affiliated with the Black Lives Matter grassroots movement. So they literally do not have, so you cannot call yourself an NAACP chapter unless you are a NAACP chapter. There are people out there right now who can call themselves Black Lives Matter organizations. They can literally put it in their name that are not affiliated with the organization. That was, I think it was in 2020, there was a dude in California who had a Black Lives Matter group out of San Francisco, and a number of companies gave him several $1 million. Then they found out he wasn't actually with the real Black Lives Matter. And so the money was rescinded. And so this is what you just described, Larry, has been part of the problem from day one. So basically, the horse had already escaped the barn, and they were trying to catch up to the horse, and the horse for the last 10 years has been dragging them behind. They've never actually been able to jump on top of the horse and actually be able to ride it because they've been trying to build an organization after things took off. Money starts flowing in, and stuff is all over the place. And so I get what you say. I listened very attentively, Melina, when you said I can't be focused on infrastructure about the work, but that's actually part of the problem. The reality is you have to have the infrastructure in place from an organization standpoint to move forward. Otherwise, it's just going to be unwieldy and all over the place. And that's really where we are today. It has been unwieldy, all over the place, and so many things intertwined in so many layers that when people just say, oh, Black Lives Matter, hell, they could be referring to a chapter that has nothing to do with the work that you're doing, but when they hear that phrase, they think it's what you're doing, and if the foundation does something, they think it's what you're doing, and vice versa, because it's all so convoluted, and that has sort of been the difficulty they've had. Larry, your second question.
Yeah, so thank you, Roland, for that background and analysis. It's really important. Yeah, my second question relates to, you used language. You described the three individuals as members of the foundation, as board members, and then you described them as consultants. And I know that, I currently serve on a few boards that have in the past. And, boards, foundations in particular, have bylaws and they have term limits. So I want a little clarification on, are they consultants? Are they board members?
Again, I just want to help you out. Then Melina can answer. She is not with the foundation.
True.
So how that whole deal even happened? Who took over? When Patrice stepped down? Again, this is all part of the problem. And so this ongoing thing is trying to fix what was all over the place. And so, because there was a point where, Melina, correct me if I'm wrong, there were things you did that you did work with the Global Network Foundation. And then all of a sudden, then it was, well, who controls the social media accounts? Who controls the websites? Who controls bank accounts? And so it was all over. And even when I talked to them, they were like, yeah, we're not over that, but we provide money. And I was kind of like, but that makes no sense whatsoever. This is all part of the problem. It's actually not building the clear, defined infrastructure hierarchy to be able to properly lead an organization, a national entity, an international organization moving forward. Melina, go ahead.
Sure. So we have to remember, and that was a great explanation, Roland. We have to remember that until 2020, Black Lives Matter one, we didn't have a global network foundation behind our name or a grassroots behind our name. We were birthed just to be a movement. That's how we came into being. We also didn't have money really to fight over. You know, there was nothing very large to manage. And so that's why we were able to focus on the work on the ground. When all the money came in 2020, there was a trust that was given to the remaining co-founder, who was Patrisse Cullors, that enabled people like me to continue to move the work on the ground. What we're doing now is trying to fix infrastructure so it's focused on the work on the ground as we're fighting to get those resources back. And so we are trying to get the resources back, and we're trying to build an infrastructure that brings together all of those whose primary concern, again, is the work on the ground, but there needs to be an infrastructure to be able to move it. So I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, Melina, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Keep us abreast of what happens next in this legal battle.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk more about this because I just want to share some things that I shared with a lot of these young activists after the death of Michael Brown that could have actually prevented all this drama that we're seeing. So we'll pick up on that when we come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Democracy in the United States is under siege. On this list of bad actors, it's easy to point out the Donald Trumps, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, or even the United States Supreme Court as the primary villains. But as David Pepper, author, scholar, and former politician himself says, there's another factor that trumps them all and resides much closer to many of our homes. His book is Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines.
So these state houses get hijacked by the far right, then they gerrymander, they suppress the opposition, and that allows them to legislate in a way that doesn't reflect the people of that state.
David Pepper joins us on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
Next, right here on The Frequency, the woman they call the Gifted Eye, hip-hop celebrity photographer Coy Soldier. She's the master storyteller that captured the history of hip-hop through the lens of her camera.
Tupac comes out, the next thing you know, you didn't know who they were at first. You just seen all these dudes just come rushing the stage. Then you realize Biggie gets a bottle of champagne, he pops it open, sprays it on the crowd, he drinks the bottle.
Coy Soldier, the hip-hop celebrity photographer, joining me right here on the next episode of The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
So I remember after the death of Michael Brown, there were several activists who had sent out some pleas for donations on social media. And what a lot of people need to remember is that we also even have to go before Michael Brown. If you go back, I mean, you can actually go back before Trayvon Martin, but in many ways, this modern movement, if you will, really began with the death of Trayvon Martin. Then you had the legal decision Zimmerman got off for the murder of Trayvon Martin. And so you had a number of people who immediately jumped into action. There were protests and there were all kinds of different things happening, but what you did not have was infrastructure. And I remember three or four had put this call out, and I hit them privately and said, hey, you want to make sure that you're running this money through a fiscal sponsor, through a nonprofit, so you're not getting nailed tax-wise. And I remember reading a story, I think Darren Sands may have wrote a piece for BuzzFeed or somebody, and there were some activists, some Black Lives Matter activists in Boston, and there were some donors who wanted to give money, and they turned it down. But then it was like a year later, a lot of them were like, yo, we screwed up because they couldn't pay their bills. And so for all of the talk about, no hierarchy, no leadership, and we sort of make decisions as a group, that shit don't work. Now, let me be real clear when I say that. I don't care who you are. There has to be hierarchy. There has to be a workflow. There has to be infrastructure. And so when I listen to people, even today, complain about the NAACP and the Urban League and all these legacy civil rights groups, here's a fact that is hard for people to get around. They still exist. And the reason that they exist is because there's infrastructure. Yes, all of them have had their issues. The National Urban League for a long time was broke as hell, in serious debt. NAACP, same thing. They've had leaders who have to deal with sexual harassment, payoffs, things along those lines. But the infrastructure allowed the organization to withstand all of that and still continue. So why am I saying this as it relates to this? It's because when Patrice left, part of the deal was that, frankly, you had one person who was in many ways running pretty much all of it, who knew where everything was actually going. It was sort of like, it sort of reminds me of a company when one person founds it and then they leave or they die, and then all of a sudden people are like, okay, where are the books? Where's this? Where's that? Where are the keys? Because there's no infrastructure. And so the problem that we're now facing, and that's why the questions from the panel were so important, the problem that we're now facing is that we as Black people, we still need Black Lives Matter movement. We still need the boots on the ground. If you notice, and I'm not the only one, think about it. Have you seen the wide-scale Black Lives Matter protest since the death of George Floyd? No. It's still needed. Is there work still being done? Yes. Are things being done in specific cities? Yes. But what is it that we still hear? What we have is you have more headlines coming out of conservative outlets that have been targeting leadership, and we know what those games are. But leadership also has to ensure you're not inviting additional headlines, additional drama. And so you have Melina and their group and with grassroots and stuff that they're doing. But I have numerous questions for the Global Network Foundation. First off, who are you? Why is it that we're now in 2023 and you only have 3 board members? Now, according to what they said to us, and again, I was on the call, was that there was a series of services that needed to be handled, and Shaloma Bauer's company handled that and was reimbursed for that. Okay, but as an organization, when are you getting away from one person being a consultant and their company handling these things? Are you hiring professional staff? I have those questions. When is Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation? Are they going to hire an executive director? Are they going to have a fully functioning board, meaning a chair of the board? Are they going to actually have how many trustees? Who are those people? When are those things going to happen? See, at some point, as you got to get beyond all the negative headlines and actually show people what you are doing when it comes to the work. Because yes, there were people who invested resources, millions of dollars. But I'm gonna say this again, and I really need everybody who's listening to me to do the same. And you got these people out here talking about it was a scam. That's BS. That was absolutely BS. Now, I said it wasn't a good look for leadership of Black Lives Matter when you have book deals and you have other deals and you're buying houses and things along those lines, See, y'all, that's why Dr. King, again, y'all, history is important. Coretta Scott King was mad as hell with Dr. King when he decided to give away the money for the Nobel Peace Prize to the movement. She wanted another house. She did not like that parsonage they had and the furniture they have. But King was always leery of what it would look like if he was living with a higher standard of living, and he did not want to be accused of mooching off the movement. I want y'all to understand that. It's documented. That is real. And so a lot of the wounds with Black Lives Matter movement, foundation, all of that were self-inflicted. Buying that house in Los Angeles and then saying, oh, it's going to turn into a content house, that was absolutely a horrible decision because the optics. Because now the story becomes, oh, you're buying a multi-million-dollar house. First of all, it's Los Angeles, so you ain't gonna get a real house in LA and it ain't gonna cost you a lot of money. But the problem now is they now have a credibility issue. And so what really needs to happen, the leadership of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, they are the ones, the questions Roland was asking, they need to come to the public. They need to come to Black-owned media and sit down and lay all of this out. And lay out, this is who we are, this is how much money we have left, this is our leadership, this is what our plan of action is, this is what we're going to do to continue to foster and help organizations, provide grants, things along those lines. And while that is happening, Melina and her group should be laying out as they are, this is our infrastructure, this is our board, this is our leadership, this is what we're doing, this is how you can reach us, all the different things. But this, folks, is why infrastructure matters. And there are too many of us who are so quick to jump out there and start trying to lead when we haven't handled the business of the business. Because the reality is, to Toron's point and to so many others, you can't have people out here doing the work, but they can't pay their lights. You can't have people out here doing the work and they can't eat. But that means infrastructure, which means you got to put them on the payroll. That means they actually have to get paid for what they're doing. Ain't no 401k plans in civil rights work. And so we have to be cognizant of that as well. This is why you have to actually, and again, do understand, folks. I just want y'all to understand. The NAACP, the 2,000 chapters, those are volunteer jobs. Those are not paid jobs. Now, they may have an executive director of a chapter. It's a paid job, but volunteer. So you have a combination of paid jobs and volunteer. It actually exists right now in numerous organizations. So Black Lives Matter, the organization, the entity, right now, they have a serious credibility problem because all people on the outside are seeing all these headlines and craziness. What they're not seeing organization, they're not seeing infrastructure, they're not seeing direction. All of that is critically important. Panel, you can weigh in on this before we actually go. I'll start with you.
Yeah, you know, Roland, you highlighted some really critical points about the movement. And I think a lot of times is when you talked about in terms of this new generation of activists, it's also this in terms of the having talked to people who have been in the movement or read about the movement and passing that information on. And I think a lot of that gets lost. And so while we talk about the mistakes that they made, I think a lot of it has to do with just institutional knowledge. Having someone who understands how to, in terms of not day-to-day operation, building infrastructure, et cetera. Because I think the point you made about things in terms of, being able to, in terms of BLM, say, okay, we're officially BLM. But in terms of you talked about things just kind of got out of hand because it took off. It was global. Next thing you know, people from all over the world are wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts. So I think that, those points you highlighted are really important. And I'm hoping that the lessons that you pass on and things you're highlighting for those folks who are watching now, who are community activists, learn from the things that you're saying, and will utilize those to make sure they have an infrastructure in place and that they have movements that continue to be effective long term.
And also, Roland, leadership should be doing a better job of explaining this. Frankly, I'm doing a hell of a lot better job than they are. And part of the problem, with the foundation is they ain't talking to nobody.
I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be as real as I can be on this program. Like I said earlier, when we were talking to Melina, I have been to Ferguson. I've been to many of these cities where these situations happen, and I've talked to people who were literally on the ground, actual boots on the ground, who have smelt tear gas, who've gotten hit in the head and have risked life and death. The issue is this. Everywhere I went and everybody I spoke to said they wanted direction and they wanted to understand what their role was within that organization. And everything I heard was that we're not hearing anything. When we try to get answers, we can't get any answers. When we try to be straightforward and get direct answers, we get nothing, or we get silence, which is worse. And my point is this. You cannot have an organization that purports to be for the people when you're not responsive to the people who are in your organization. That's the danger in this sort of thing, regardless of whatever else is going on outside. If you consider yourself to be leadership and you can't even give a straight answer to the people who are risking their lives for you and risking prison, then what good are you to the people you serve, and what good are you to an organization? You're doing nobody any good. And if you can't be straight with those people, you need to get out.
Well, part of the problem even coming out of that is that everybody wasn't, Black Lives Matter wasn't actually over that movement. That's what I'm saying. This stuff has been so convoluted that that's just what it's sort of been back and forth. And again, there are a lot of people, Shannon, who were claiming they were BLM, but they were not, because there was actually nothing that was really official that was BLM. It's been all this drama since, and they got to get it sorted out. Otherwise, it's going to be a completely wasted opportunity. And why spend all that work building something up and having all this engagement, and it fails?
Absolutely. The other organizations that you mentioned, like the NAACP and the Urban League and all of the other ones that have been around, they do have structure. You know how to reach their branches and chapters. You know who's heading them, who's running them. There's contact information, the stuff that makes you feel like they are an actual real entity. Now, I understand that Black Lives Matter started as a movement, but when the movement started to move, it needed to have a structure in place to anchor it so that it didn't just move everywhere, but that it was grounded, it was building a solid foundation. And a lot of times we get an idea, our hearts and our minds are involved, and we want to do, and we don't always get the foundational stuff together. And that foundational stuff is not fun, it's not pretty, but it's the stuff that keeps you behind out of trouble when your organization starts to grow and move.
Yep, indeed. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back, we're going to talk the death of Jim Brown. Obviously, his legacy when it comes to football, legacy when it comes to his community work. But there are a number of people who also are talking about his legacy as it relates to violence against women. All of these things people are raising since he passed away late last week. We're going to be hearing from some folks coming up, chatting with Hall of Famer Edward and James. Also hearing from Hall of Famer Marcus Allen, Sterling Sharp, Willie Buchanan, and others. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, the wealth gap has literally not changed in over 50 years, according to the Federal Reserve. On the next Get Wealthy, I'm excited to chat with Jim Castleberry, CEO of Known Holdings. They have created a platform, an ecosystem to bring resources to Blacks and people of color so they can scale their business.
Even though we've had several examples of African Americans and other people of color being able to be successful, we still aren't seeing the mass level of us being lifted up.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together, so let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
A lot of folks have been talking about life and legacy of Jim Brown, who passed away last week at the age of 87. So many in the football world, especially those who played the position of running back, talked about what he meant to the league, to them personally. Joining me right now is Hall of Famer Edgerrin James, of course, played with Indianapolis Colts, elected to the Hall of Fame, played that running back position. Edge, glad to have you on the show. Just share with us your recollections, your thoughts with regards to Jim Brown.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah. No, Jim Brown was, he like the mold. He was the one that set the example, even though he played before a lot of our times. But once you start playing the running back position, you learn about Jim Brown. You see all the great things that he done. And one thing that made him stand out when I first started was how many times he led the league in rushing. So that was super important to me. And that's when I started studying Jim Brown. And to know that he could have went on and did so many more great things as a football player, and he shut it down to go and be an activist and go to Hollywood and actually be bigger than football. I think everybody that understands or knows his story has a great appreciation for him as a person, as a player, and what he's doing for the culture.
Obviously, he was the gold standard for the position that you played. In a bit, I'm going to play something from Sterling Sharp, and he said, frankly, when there was a conversation, he said there was never this GOAT debate. He said it was clear. It was Jim and everybody else.
Yeah, the greatest. I'm talking about anybody. Everybody knows it starts with Jim and then everybody else.
Indeed. Just share with us your interaction with him over the years.
Well, over the years, especially once you get to the Hall of Fame, you always cross paths before that, but once I got to the Hall of Fame, you got a chance to be around him a little bit more. He's a little older, and the one he came to Mr. Irsay, Mr. Jim Irsay does this concert, this collection. He had Jim Brown come there. And I have this old 1975 Chevy Impala or Chevy Caprice Classic that I get all the Hall of Famers to sign. And that was one of a big moment right there for Jim to sit there. He just signed my seat, and he put that number 32 on there. That stamped it because, I got the greatest football player to ever play to sign a seat full of Hall of Famers, and he stands out amongst everybody.
Indeed. Edgerrin James, man, I appreciate you joining us, just sharing your thoughts about the passing of Jim Brown.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem, my brother. Be well.
All right, cool.
Folks, I was at the Anthony Anderson Golf Tournament, Celebrity Golf Classic at Bighorn in Palm Desert, California on yesterday. Caught up with Willie Buchanan. He's a member of the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame. He had this to say about Jim Brown.
All right, start the question.
All right, go ahead. All right, so just share your thoughts about Jim Brown.
Greatest football player that ever lived. Jim Brown was a classic. I work for the NFL still, and I worked the sidelines. I went and grabbed the ball out of the ball bag, walked it over to Jim Brown. I said, Jim, I need your signature. This ball is for me, not to anybody else. I want to keep this as a souvenir, just for me, and it's still in my office to this day. Jim Brown was the greatest. That's all you can say. He was the greatest.
All righty. Sterling Sharpe, of course, played wide receiver in the NFL. His brother, Shannon Sharpe, is in the Hall of Fame. Got a chance to chat with Sterling as well. All right, your thoughts about the passing of Jim Brown?
Well, it's easy with Jim Brown. He was a good friend of mine. He treated me with, I think, the greatest compliment I ever got, I got from Jim Brown, who said I could play in any era. But when I think of Jim Brown, I think of a great player. I mean, I'm not going to do any of the off the field and the social justice stuff that he did. He was great at the movies. He was good at. I'm just talking about the man. When you talk about what he did playing the game of football, there was not Jim Brown or it's, you know, like we do with Michael Jordan and LeBron James. But with Jim Brown, when I thought Jim Brown is just a great player, and you leave it at that. And then a lot of us believe the greatest football player. So, you know, he was going through some health things. You know, he was moving a little slower. He still loved his golf, but, you know, it's a tremendous man that I'm glad I got a chance to interact with, have him in my life, get a chance to conversate with him, talk to him. And like I said, he gave me the greatest compliment as an athlete, as a football player I ever got, and that is that I could have played in any era. I don't need any more than that.
Marcus Allen, of course, starred with the Los Angeles Raiders. He's also in the Hall of Fame as well. So I caught up with him after yesterday's tournament. All righty, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Well, Marcus, just share your thoughts about Jim Brown.
Clearly sad about passing of Jim Brown. I met Jim Brown back in 78, maybe. My freshman year at USC. Me, Ronnie Lott, Dennis Smith went to his house to play basketball with him. And just an incredible experience, and really been friends ever since. To me, he was a measure in many different ways, you know, as far as intellect, as far as courage, as far as someone doing the right thing and not the popular thing. That sort of epitomizes Jim Brown to me. But when you really got to know him, he was just, he was a great guy who wanted to elevate you and all that you were doing, and wanted you to become, I think, a beacon that would represent your family and your community. And so it was sad for me. It was sad for me.
Pat Marshall Falcon was joking with him about playing golf with Jim. I said I was told his peripheral vision was so ridiculous that you had to be. Marshall said, "I'm just going to sit in the cart." He said how just crazy his vision was. He didn't want anyone in.
And let me tell you, he had incredible peripheral vision because he could see people that was actually behind him and said, "Excuse me, could you move?" Yeah, we all witnessed that and stuff. So when we played with Jim, we knew where to stand and where not to stand. So
absolutely. All right, man, I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Roland.
So we obviously so many people are focused on who he was as a football player, who he was as an activist, who he was in Hollywood as well. This here headline, hopefully, if I can pull it up here in the Cleveland, in Cleveland.com, they talked about this as well, and that is the allegations of domestic violence against him, his relationships with women. If you look at social media, there have been a number of folks who have talked about this very issue. You hear the phrase from a lot of quarters that Jim Brown was a complicated man. In many ways, that's folks not wanting to actually deal with these stories. This here is the headline. Go to my iPad, please. Jim Brown's legacy clouded by allegations of domestic violence. And in here, it talks about him being booked on suspicion of assault with intent to commit murder. Again, so many other allegations here. And there's something right here. I'll start with you, Larry, that you have to deal with. Bomani Jones on his podcast dealt with this, and what he said, he walked this thing through, and he said that Brown never, he said, for all of this talk of him being a man's man, he never actually wanted to confront the one issue that dogged him, and that is his issue with women. This is also a part of his legacy. There are people who, I've seen some people say, oh, you shouldn't bring these things up. You can't ignore it. So when you talk about someone's legacy, their life and legacy, it's not just stuff that we think that are good and noble, it's everything.
Yeah, you're right, Roland, and I'm glad we're talking about this issue. Intimate partner violence is something I take very seriously, certainly on a board that deals with these issues previously. And also, this is an issue that's impact, particularly when we talk about how it's impact Black women, Black women in particular, women in general. But you have to talk about these issues, and it's not like this is one allegation. There are multiple allegations of intimate partner violence when it comes to Jim Brown. But it's certainly, like you said, is in terms of the collectively the person. You can talk about the civil rights work and his work on the field, but you have to address in terms of violence and women and his life in general. And that is part of his legacy, and these are real incidents. So it's really important that we talk about that. And once again, I'm glad we're discussing these issues.
When I look at this article here, Shannon, they talk about in 1965, an 18-year-old accusing Brown of assault and battery. He was acquitted after a 10-day trial. Also, in 1985, he was booked on suspicion of rape and sexual battery. Charges were dropped 3 months later. Many people remember in 1999, when his wife Monique called the cops after he was destroying a car with a shovel, and he was found first of all acquitted on the more serious charge, but the judge did sentence him to a year domestic violence counseling. And what's interesting is that he refused to do that, and instead went to jail, served jail for 4 months. He did say this here: "I'm no angel." But regardless of the allegations, he said, "I've never been convicted. I've just been harassed. I've been hit so much I don't sting anymore." And then he said, I take it and look my accuser in the eye. I don't look at my shoes when I talk to anybody. I know what I am. I only have to live with myself." What's interesting is when you look at a lot of folks, when you look at when someone passes away, what folks don't want to talk about. I mean, look, when Kobe Bryant died in that tragic helicopter crash, there are folks who said, "Oh, no, media should be bringing up when he went on trial and when he was going through his legal issues when it came to sexual assault." But that's also something that is going to get brought up.
Absolutely. You shouldn't cherry pick history. Whether the accusations were true or not, it is historically accurate to say there were accusations, there were issues, there were times when he claimed himself not to be an angel, but having been able to understand what he did and look himself in the eye, and not look down at his shoes, which I think is kind of an awesome phrase. Nobody's perfect. Nobody. If you have done some things, first of all, you don't get to a certain age without having some baggage and some issues. Some are more egregious than others, but again, allegations. And I think to try and erase that or remove that from his past and his history, it does a disservice, because you never know how many folks are in a similar situation that may hear something that someone who is accused of doing something did that helps them to face some demons in their own lives and change some things in their own lives. So I think when you do something, you got to own it, you got to keep it, you got to move forward with it, and just hope to be a better person.
Well, and that's the thing. It is just quite interesting to me, Larry, just watching the different reactions and listening to people and just watching how when I see people and when I'm watching and reading these stories, how some say, well, you shouldn't bring these things up because hey, he wasn't found guilty. And then I've seen a number of people, especially women, who say, okay, but you can't ignore the repeated accusations over and over and over again. It is as if, and then when I talked about how Bomani broke this thing down on his podcast when he kept saying, we got to stop with this whole idea of, he was this complicated man. He's like, you have to confront of what that complication was. Here's some of that particular podcast. I listened to it today when I was flying from Los Angeles, and I found it to be quite interesting and compelling. Check it out.
These circumstances that so many people have given up on, and these neighborhoods that even cops are scared to roll up on, and these gangs that even the cops are scared to do anything with. Jim Brown's walking in dealing with them broker intruders. And by the way, this is a world and causes that a whole lot of our more erudite bourgeois folks that claim to care so much ain't care nearly as much about those dudes. Care about them kind of in theory and in an academic way, but on the boots on the ground sort of way, hey, man, take a man to do that. And that man was Jim Brown. And that man was consistently Jim Brown. But what's interesting about AmeriCAN when he started it, I found this right before I got on the show. He said that he had based the AmeriCAN Foundation around three things: the determination of Malcolm X, the recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the capitalism of Ronald Reagan. See, this is why it's interesting when Jim aligned himself with Trump and people were so shocked and so saddened. I was like, what are you talking about? Jim Brown's a capitalist. Like, this is what he's about. Jim Brown also endorsed Nixon in 1972. Now, something to think about, though, with Brown and his endorsement of Nixon. James Brown also was a Nixon endorser. Wilt Chamberlain, too. Though with Wilt Chamberlain, people looked at it like he kind of got fooled. There was a consistency with James Brown and Jim Brown on this. And these are two, again, man, right? Like that standard idea of masculinity. But these are also up from like bootstrap type dudes. Like they really believe that. James Brown really looked at himself in that way and truly believed that the path for black people was self-determination. The self-determination was going to be the thing that made it happen, not the ideas that liberal politics typically have of what black people need. They just believe, hey, man, give us a chance and we're going to go over here and we're going to make it work. There's a consistency there in that ethos for these guys who really believe in capitalism and really believe in this, right? Like, it's there. That's why I say Jim is not complex. It is not complex that Jim Brown would align himself with Donald Trump. And the reason it's not complex that he would align himself with Donald Trump is that Donald Trump would be willing to meet with him, which I feel somewhat confident a whole lot of these other presidents would not. And by the way, I did a Google image search on that too, right? It's in the most thorough search, so I could be wrong. I couldn't find no pictures of Jim Brown with Jimmy Carter. I couldn't find no pictures. Only picture I found of Jim Brown with Bill Clinton, they were both on some panel. I couldn't find no pictures of Jim Brown with George Bush. I sure couldn't find no pictures of Jim Brown with Barack Obama. Them dudes wasn't meeting with Jim. Trump would. And you know why Trump would? Because Trump ain't tripping off the fact that you put your hands on a few women. See, this gets us to the place where people say that Jim Brown is complex or complicated. And again, I don't see anything complicated about this. It's complicated if you want to make Jim Brown a plaster saint. If you want to be able to take the good works he did and use them to define him, then maybe it's complicated. Or maybe it's complicated if you want to simply view him through the lens of his treatment of women. There's room to talk about these two things at once. And you have to talk about the way Jim dealt with women. I wrote something, I guess it's now, wow, man, it might be like 17 years ago about Jim Brown. And it was just about how Jim Brown was the most intimidating athlete ever. And I remember, I haven't looked the piece up, but I remember I almost had like a throwaway part at the end. This is like 2006, somewhere there. I feel like I had like a throwaway part in the end about the flip side of this, of course, is that his intimidating nature also led to him having these problems with violence against women. I obviously in that piece did not give it enough attention. In this time, we're not as willing to just kind of be like, yeah, but about the violence that Jim perpetrated against women. And part of why I think that we were so willing to do that for so long with him is because Jim Brown was a man, right? even if you saw this as being negative behavior, I think a lot of people viewed that as an extension of the hypermasculinity that he projected. Almost, can't make an omelet without breaking eggs kind of situation. Like, I think that's how a lot of people
Folks, if you want to hear
those things.
The rest of that, what you should do is you should pull up Bomani's podcast, The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Final comment from each one of the panelists. Roland, I'll start with you.
You know, it's a difficult thing to get into because, look, nobody is saying that it's right to abuse anybody. Nobody's saying that somebody who from that time didn't have some demons. But my thing is you have to take everybody in totality, sort of like Bomani said on the podcast. You know, you have to look at the work he did with communities who everybody had pretty much written off. You have to look at what he had to face being a football player, then moving from football into being an activist when there was a real serious risk of losing your life and losing your freedom just from that. You have to look at this person in the full spectrum. I'm not saying that you have to discard the things about him that may have been negative, but we have this tendency, and especially when it comes to black men, to the minute something happens where they pass on, we pull out everything negative and we use that to kind of leverage against everything else they've done. If we're going to have that conversation, conversation has to be balanced about their good and their bad. That's all I want.
Larry.
Yeah, I think that, certainly, like I said, I have to go back and listen to the podcast. He makes some excellent point and really good analysis. I think the other thing is when we talk about issues related to intimate partner violence, and like I said, when I go back to it, because we're discussing this issue, is I agree with my colleague, you have to, you paint this tapestry of someone's lived experiences, but we have to remember this is one of the things I always felt in the black community when people talked about Mr. Brown and his, particularly my father, about how kind of watching him play, et cetera, that this is always kind of like he described, Jones described in his essay. He talked about the end, like people and father and other folks will talk about this very end. But this is something when we talk about value in black women and other women, we have to put to the forefront. And really, we should be leading with this, and then but also offer context to the other things he's done in the field, his civil rights work, et cetera. But we have to confront this because this is an issue that's impacting the lives of women throughout not only the U.S. but throughout the world.
Shannon.
As much as so many folks have tried to say, it's not a complicated issue. It kind of is. From the perspective of women deal with a lot of issues, gender-based issues, and up until recently, and still sometimes, they get dismissed just because it's a woman that says whatever she says. We look at men for what they do positive, and whatever issues, gender-based issues they may have with women, that's personal, that's over on the side, that's, whatever. But it isn't. When we look at folks that we put up on a pedestal, we have to look at everything, not necessarily judge, but don't turn a blind eye either. Keep it, that phrase we all like to use, keep it real? Keep it real. He was a man that had an awesome football career. He had an awesome acting career. He had an awesome civil rights career. He did a lot of good work, but he did some things that mayhaps he shouldn't have. And I think to look at one without the other, in a way, diminishes a little bit of the good that he did.
Indeed. Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. Our Marketplace segment right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
It's a name angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. We've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins.
Hey, I'm Deion Cole from Blackish. Hey, everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, fam, we all love games. Now, y'all know we get together, we play some games. Some of us play spades, some of us can't play spades. Then, of course, there's bid whist, and then, of course, we can talk about, Lord, Monopoly, Jeopardy. My family, Scrabble. My dad, a huge Scrabble fan. Categories. What's the game Unique? Unique did with the cards. What's the,
the culture tags?
Yeah, the culture tags. And so actually, she should call that game Shit Black People Say. That's really what it should be called. But Reecie Colbert, she has a game that she put out. And so we were talking about it. So Reecie explained this, Am I Tripping? Okay,
yes.
So so walk us through, Am I Tripping?
So the concept is really simple. There are 100 game cards in the deck, and on each of these cards, there are scenarios written down that are meant to spark. I picked out some of the best ones, because Roland is so opinionated. So I said, okay, I gotta get Roland to chime in on if the person on the card is tripping or not. And so the topics cover dating, relationships, marriage, parenting, money issues.
Like I saw one today. Actually, it was one today. And it wasn't a card, y'all. It was real life. So apparently, this woman gave her friend a $400 baby shower gift, and her friend had a miscarriage, and homegirl was like, "Should I ask for the gift back?" No, you need your ass whooped.
Right, you're tripping.
Yeah, you need your ass whooped.
Right. Exactly.
So you have these. So okay, let's see here. So one of these here, the most I will tip for a takeout order is $5, regardless of the order amount. Am I tripping? And so what then happens? So you throw this out there, then everybody talks about it?
Everybody talks about it, and you decide like, yeah, you're tripping because you should tip 20%, or you should tip 10%, or I don't tip for takeout regardless because I'm not getting served, So it's meant to...
I'll answer that.
Okay.
I tip if the pizza been delivered to my house, I'm tipping.
Right.
I ain't tipping if I order at the counter.
Right.
And my ass drove to pick it up.
But wait a minute.
And you process the order. I mean, that's why I'm paying for the food.
But what if you didn't order at the counter? What if you placed the order online, and when you get there, you just pop in, boom, take your food and leave?
That's the same thing. All you did was you put my shit in the package. That's what I paid for.
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand now. You go to places and they got, on the whole deal, tip amount.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't do nothing. Like, all you did was literally take my order. I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
Come on, no, I ain't doing that one.
So then it was like not tripping because you agree with the person on the card.
Got it. Okay, all right. My coworker's boyfriend threatened me in the work parking lot because he thought we were fooling around. Since he picks her up frequently, I'm considering reporting the incident to HR, even though she is one strike away from getting fired.
Am I tripping?
Am I tripping? Okay. All right.
So what's the answer?
Okay,
what do you think?
Let's see.
Hey, you gotta give the answer.
All right, let's see. My coworker's boyfriend threatened me at work. Because he thought, well, first of all, here's the problem with her question. It's you gonna report her to HR. Yeah. When what your ass should be doing, if he threatened you, you should be calling the cops. They ain't got nothing to do with HR.
Right.
Because she wasn't. Now, was she there? Was she present? Was she involved in there? If she wasn't, why in the hell would you be going to HR?
Well, so this is where the fun of the game is. You fill in the blanks. It's like an open-ended hypothetical, and then you say, well, it depends. Like, if homegirl was out there watching her boyfriend threaten me, then yeah, it's an HR issue because this happened at work. So that's where it's meant to really spur discussion and get people to fill in the blanks.
All right. So when did you come up with this idea? Where did it come from?
Okay, so on my show, the Reecie Colbert Show on Sirius XM Urban View, I have a segment called Am I Trippin'? And I was like, I got to find a way to try to protect this idea because I'm just a small fish in a big pond. So somebody like a Charlemagne, I'm not trying to put him on blast. Somebody else might be like, oh, we should turn this into a card game. So I was like, well, let me do it first. So I came up with the idea to do a card game so I can trademark Am I Trippin'? Also have something to leverage with my show. This media stuff don't, unless you're Roland Martin, this media stuff don't pay like that, So I was like, well, let me.
She tripping.
Okay, put that on the card. That'll be in the next edition.
She tripping.
Yeah, so that's what it was just about. It was about having something.
It's like this one here. My wife and I can't agree on what kind of car to get my son for his 16th birthday. We make good money, so she wants to get him a new entry-level luxury car. I told her we make good money, not him, so he needs to work his way up to luxury and start with a cheap car. Am I tripping? No, you ain't tripping. First of all, I ain't buying you shit at 16.
Wow. Okay, what age? 18?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
18. I ain't buying you no damn car at 16. Nah, you maybe drive my car, maybe. Maybe.
Okay.
But I ain't buying your ass no car at 16. And it damn sure ain't gonna be no luxury car.
But don't you think the car that your child has is a reflection of you as well?
Hell no. Because I don't give a shit what nobody else thinks anyway.
Okay.
When I drove my Corolla, I didn't give a damn what nobody else thinks. That shit was paid for.
Right, okay.
Like right now, my Navigator will be 15 years old in November. It's been paid for since the day I drove it off the lot.
Wow.
Y'all can kiss my ass if you got a problem with me having a 15-year-old car.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Guess what? Your ass got a note. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But see, I would want to buy my daughter a luxury if I had the means to do. I would be like, oh, girl, you got to sign.
Her ass getting a cheap damn car. No, he right. What Bill Cosby said in the Cosby Show?
Oh, I don't know what he say.
When he said no, me and your mama rich.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of this going around.
You ain't rich.
Yeah.
I'm with him on that. No.
Yeah.
That ain't happening. I think Shaq, it was a video, Shaq did that. He told his son, I think his son graduated like, say, get whatever car you wanted. So his son went and he wanted, he wanted the Charger.
Oh, okay.
But the top of the line Charger. He was like, oh, hell no, you ain't getting that one. He said,
get the entry level.
He said, I got that one. You ain't getting that
right,
one.
Right,
so yeah, I'm with him on that one. All right, let's see here. Who am I starting with? Larry. I guarantee you, Larry probably already had dinner conversation like this already.
Right.
So Larry, what do you think about Am I Tripping?
You already know. First of all, Reecie, congrats on all your success. I say you're killing it. I love the game idea. I think it's great. I think it's going to be a hit. Make sure you let us know what the website is so I can go and support your sister. That's first of all. Second of all, let me go to a couple of those questions. So 16-year-old, nah, you're going to have to. No, you're tripping. You're gonna have to earn that. That's first of all.
Wow, tough crowd.
Thirdly, with the whole thing about the boyfriend in the parking lot, forget the professor stuff. I'm from Philly, so I'm not even having that. So I don't need HR to handle that situation. So he's tripping. So that's my answer.
I love that. Yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention. So in each package, I decided instead of making it a card, I was going to make it an insert because people want 100 cards. They don't want 99 cards plus an instruction cards.
Right.
So I have this insert with each package that gives you some ideas.
So small ass writing.
I know. know, but look, it's 4x6. It's like 12 cents to print this, okay? So, you know.
Damn, girl, you need to increase the damn type. I got good eyes, but damn.
Well.
See, you should use both sides of it, see.
Okay. I'm taking advice from the entrepreneur, from the guru.
Big-ass print.
Yeah.
Look at the ass print. You put a magnifying glass in that damn box as well.
And listen, everybody got a phone. Take a picture and zoom in. Boom. Problem solved.
See right there. See right there. No, use both sides. You're already paying for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, free advice.
Shannon, go
I'll
ahead.
take it.
Wow. So, there's a lot of tripping going on from them questions. My 16-year-old is not getting a brand new luxury car. You're going to get a Fred Flintstone mobile and hope you got some good shoes on to be able to make them brakes work when you need to make them brakes work. Unless you got your own thing going. I'm sorry. As far as fast food, I'm going to pick up food and I'm tipping. You tripping if you think I'm tipping. If I'm coming to get in my car, use my gas to get over the way you at. No, it's not happening. And as far as the HR, the parking lot, and all that, there is a song that I listen to. It's called "Try Jesus, Don't Try Me," because I like hams.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it there with that.
I know that's right.
All right, so now these questions, did most of these come up on the show? In dinner parties, how'd you come up with the questions?
So I
came up with the scenarios.
I came up with them. Some of them are kind of from my personal life, you know, with a little spin on it to protect some people.
Mm-hmm.
The HR one, it's not me, but it's people that I know have been involved in a lot of these scenarios. And then other things are just kind of like, some of them are simple, like I don't tip more than $5 on takeout, because the idea is like, you know, these are kind of scenarios that we all find ourselves in. So some are scandalous, some are very simple. And then I have cards in there where it's about sharing your own story. I put one in there for you, Roland, because I know you have to tell people no a lot.
Yeah.
So one of the cards, I think it's in that deck you have, it asks, you know, share a true story about a time where you said no to somebody that made you think, am I tripping? So on every card, it does.
I never thought I was tripping.
Well, so you just already know you're never tripping. Okay, well, that's.
If I tell your ass no, no means no.
But sometimes you say no and do you ever feel bad about saying no?
No.
Okay, well, it does not apply to you.
Hell no, I don't feel bad.
I know you don't.
If I tell your ass no, the answer's no.
The answer is no.
And I feel perfectly fine.
So you can call other people tripping, but you never tripping.
Hell no. Okay. I'm not about to sit. If you ask something, no.
That's a full sentence.
Why do I feel bad? Right. It's a full damn sentence with a period.
Yes, point blank at the period.
Absolutely. I think this one here. I think this one. Let's see. I think this one applies to Toe Run.
Oh boy.
No, I think this. After a night of drinking, my friend got sick and threw up in my car. I told him he needed to give me money to get it professionally clean, but he said it was my fault for pressuring him to keep drinking. I did keep buying shots, but as a grown man, he should have known his limits. Am I tripping?
Oh Lord, you gonna put that one on me?
Hell yeah, put it on you.
It's ironic because I've had that situation before.
And
see, there we go.
Look, I say it straight up. Look, you should be thanking me because if I'm designated driver and I'm getting you home without you having to lay on the ground, you need to be hooking me up, man. I did take one of the shirts that he took off and used it to mop up some stuff, so I didn't get tripped at all. I wasn't tripping. I didn't feel like it.
I'm making his head clean it up, even in his drunk state.
Oh wow, you're not gonna wait till the next. Well, it does stink after a whole.
That funk not gonna be about in the car. No.
It takes some days to air it out.
Your drunk ass cleaning up right now.
Look, I have never thrown up in anybody's car, but this is a true scenario. I do have a friend who threw up in her purse to avoid throwing up in my car. So I was like, thank you. And I bought her a new purse to thank her.
I can't stand being around drunk. If you drunk.
Well, you don't drink.
But if you drunk, I don't mind you drinking.
Yeah.
You get to the point when you drunk and you throwing up.
Yeah.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
You know your limits.
Yeah, we got problems. All right, I want to throw this last one out. Each panelist answer this question. My pet peeve has been around people who never have cash. Yes, I know there are cash transfers, apps, and cards, but I think it's crazy not to even have at least $2 on you at all times. Am I tripping? Larry?
listen, we become a cashless society. There are times I think I have cash and I don't because we use it so infrequently. So no, it's, society's transitioning. You don't have cash, you don't have cash.
Shannon?
So
I try to keep an emergency bill of some amount somewhere very deep in my wallet for that emergency, because you never know when something's going to happen. And even the establishment you go into may have an issue with a card and there's something you want. So I do try to keep a little bit of cash. But during the height of COVID, we didn't keep cash. We didn't even have change. Supermarkets didn't even give change when you went to go pay for something, even if you used the card. So I think it's really up to the individual. And if you tripping if you let somebody else's opinion on what's in your wallet matter to you.
Toron?
No, I don't think it's tripping. I haven't seen a physical dollar in like 5 years. So you know what I mean? Nobody really carries cash anymore. I was cleaning the house a couple of days ago and found some money that fell out of a box that I had and stuff that I forgot was in there. So no, I don't think it's tripping. Nobody really carries it. Do we need to? It might be a good idea to have something because you never know. But no, I don't think it's tripping in this day and age.
No, so this ain't tripping. What's tripping is if your ass ain't got no money.
Right.
What's tripping is when your ass come to the lunch or the dinner, even if you're a family member, and you know your ass broke, and you order some damn food, and then you looking for your brothers and sisters or mamas and daddies or somebody else to pay, and you knew your broke ass didn't have no money.
Yeah.
Your ass tripping.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you.
You should have ate before you got here, drank some water, eat some free-ass nachos. But I know your ass not going to order no appetizer, no entree, and some dessert when you know you ain't got... See, right there. Now, again, if you ain't got no cash, cool.
Yeah.
But your ass about to be cash happy.
Right, there you go.
At least ask.
Ask somebody ahead of time.
So
pull somebody to the side like, I want to go out. But I'm short right now. Can you hook me up? Before you even go out there, don't just go up and do that.
Let
you know what
me
I mean?
say it again. Your ass ain't got no money. You got no business ordering anything unless it's been established up front that somebody else is paying for the whole dinner.
Yeah.
You need to sit there and eat before your ass get there. You need to drink you some water. Drink that free ass bread, and don't you order nothing.
That's cold. You don't feel uncomfortable when somebody is like in front of you with
no. Sit your broke ass there.
Jeez.
First of all, why am I uncomfortable? Because your ass broke.
For me, if I'm eating, we all eat it. I think you tripping, Roland.
Hell no. Especially if I had to pay for your ass the last 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
See,
No, that's different.
Well, wait a minute. If you pay, do you believe that you pay everything, including the tip? That's one of the cards. Or does if you pay, then the people that you're treating pay for the tip?
No, first of all, if I'm inviting people, and I'm paying for everything, I'm paying for everything.
There you go.
We doing that.
Okay.
But no, if your ass ain't got no money.
But you don't invite broke people out with you. You like, you gotta.
No, I ain't inviting broke people.
I wouldn't invite, but if you're there, my feeling is if you're there, I eat, we all eat. I don't want nobody who's sitting up there, oh, I'm just gonna have some fries because I only got $3.
Don't your ass come. Don't you bring.
Can I interject for a second? Can I interject for a second? My husband and I have been married for 25 years. There are times when I go out to dinner meetings or I go to meetings, go out to the diner with folk after a meeting and this, that, and the other, and I will sit there and I will have something to drink and I might get a piece of something to snack on, but then I may order something to go because we have a rule. Every night, we eat dinner together, a late dinner like it used to. Kids were little after they went to bed. So I'm going to be that one that's out there with the group at the meeting. I'm going to have a soda. I'm going to have a little something. But I'm going home to have dinner with my man. That's what we do every night.
Oh.
That's beautiful.
So,
damn that shit.
That's real.
I ain't waiting on your ass.
Oh, Lord.
Look.
See, but that's just it, though. I have what I need to feed B should I choose to.
I'm saying.
But I choose to. What I will usually do if I'm in that situation, I'm trying to go home. It's not that I don't have. is that I appreciate I'm out here with y'all, but my breaking bread is gonna be with the man I'm gonna lay next to. So I may order something for the both of us to go.
I don't need you waiting.
No, I get that. I love that concept. My whole thing is like, if it's okay, you gotta just have that conversation. Sometimes people don't have it all. All I'm saying is we out somewhere. Just let me know what you got and what you don't got. So if I can do that, I'll do it. Just don't post up somebody and say, hey, we gonna ride out, and then you ain't got nothing and everything. That gets on my nerves. That's happened to me before.
Let me say it again. Y'all think? Let me say it again. That's why I love this video. I saw it on Instagram and I sent it around to some people because it's funny as hell. Y'all pull up my iPad. I love this video because this describes exactly what I was just talking about.
Jaden has $1 bill, 1 quarter, and 2 pennies. How much money does he have? Jaden broke.
Oh my! Well, once we said that don't get you far.
That's
I know
it.
that's right.
You bring your broke ass to lunch or dinner.
Roland is not picking up the check, period.
Especially if I don't like your ass.
Right.
All right, that ain't gonna happen. All right, where do people get the cards?
It's on amitrippinggame.com. I would love for you to buy it. I package everything myself. This is a completely Black woman-owned small business. I'm in my dining room table printing out labels, putting them in envelopes. So I appreciate it.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, we'll see. One day maybe it'll be like the next Cards Against Humanity, and then I'll be on the beach somewhere.
Am I tripping? All right, I'm gonna go through this deck and see real life scenarios, but just let me know. If your ass ain't got no money,
stay your broke ass home.
Keep your broke ass at home. Saying thoughts and prayers. That's what you should do. All right, Reecie, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Folks, that's it. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here. Shout out to Erica. She was Erica, who filmed it yesterday? Y'all know I ain't watching nothing.
Yeah, it was Erica.
Yeah, I was busy playing golf. We had a great time out there with Anthony Anderson. Later in the week, I'm going to show y'all some of the videos and the photos. Again, had a good time. Had by all there. Folks, I'll see you guys tomorrow right here. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Don't forget, download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also, of course, support us in our efforts by joining our Bring the Funk fan club, send your checks and money orders. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, you can get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. And before I go, I got to hear my man talking about Jaden broke ass one more time. It's going to take us out. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!
$1 bill. Jaden has $1 bill, 1 quarter, and 2 pennies. How much money does he have? Jaden broke.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Reecie Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.